Now, smart pots have been made right here in Oklahoma City since 1984. How
No,
many?
but go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, but go ahead and finish your question, and then I'll get to the rest of the answer.
Okay. How many smart
So,
pots have been produced over the years?
well, a bunch, but initially, like I said, 1984. When my dad started things, he didn't want to make anything. He wanted to have other people make stuff for him. His idea of a company was that we would sell stuff, but we'd leave the making, the manufacturing, to somebody who we could contract with, and they would make it for us. And that's what we did for the first 10, almost 15 years. Again,
Okay.
going back to the 10 or 15 years of just a tree, just a root control bag, just in the ground, and all that kind of stuff. So we had our product contract manufactured with a company in New Orleans for 10 or 15 years, for a long time.
Okay.
And we constantly had product quality issues. The product quality, particularly right at first, was bad. But again, you got to remember, you're growing a maple tree or an oak tree, so it takes 2 or 3 years before you realize just how bad it is.
Sure.
So you can plant something out in 1984, you're not going to dig it out until 1986, and then roots are going to be everywhere. It's a mess. So that becomes a big issue for us early on, a poorly made product. And then as you try to improve, how do you even, so it took a long number of years for us to learn how to make a good bag for a grower, for a plant grower. What kind of thread do you use? What kind of fabric do you use? Do you all of these things that go into it. It took quite a few years, and frankly, quite a few mistakes. Or mistakes is the wrong word.
You're inventing a new product, so you're not sure of the right way to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And our test product, our test market here is trees. So it takes a few years to learn.
It's a long cycle.
You grow an oak tree. Well, it takes 2 or 3 years to grow that oak tree. So it's a long cycle. The nice thing about growing an oak tree, however, is that even though it takes a long time, you got a root structure out there that's really putting a lot of force and pressure on the fabric. So you're going to learn, is it a decent fabric or not? Well, if you can do it with an oak, you can do it you've got a good fabric there. So it took us quite a few years to learn how to make a good fabric. In fact, once we then made the change and started working above ground and started pitching above ground, talking about above ground, then of course, and started to be successful and started getting to stores. Then, of course, all the knockoffs suddenly come. Anybody who's, has some fabric and the Chinese-made bags and every knockoff in the world. And I remember one of our customers, a distributor, who I won't name to protect the guilty. Anyway, they came out with a Housemade bag, and I remember seeing them at a trade show. And when I saw them at the show and I saw the bag, and I thought, those, sons of bitches are knocking us off. They're selling our product, but they've got some cheap Chinese product, and made me mad. And I was talking to the salesman, because they're friends of ours. And he goes, we had to do it, because we need a cheap bag in there. And so I said, well, and I reached down, I grabbed the bag, and I picked it up, and immediately knew, well, this bag is terrible. You guys don't know what you're doing. You're not going to be able to grow anything in this. You totally have the wrong fabric, and the thread isn't any good. And this bag is just dirt. It's terrible. But it was like, okay, I'm not going to tell you this, because we've spent years struggling with bad fabric, bad everything. We've spent years learning how to make a great product, and so if you guys want to trot out with a less than marginal product, be my guest. I can tell you what's going to happen about 3 years from now. You're going to have a lot of unhappy customers, and then we'll be talking about how the fabric fell apart in the middle of a big grow, and how the roots didn't really they didn't really fiber and prune. They circled around. Oh, but the bag held extra moisture and became waterlogged, and then that rotted out everything. And well, I could have told you right there by feeling their fabric what was going to happen. But of course, I didn't want to share that.
They had to learn the hard way.
They had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
But the bad part about that is, of course, if a customer hasn't tried a Smart Pot, if they haven't tried a bag that actually works, well, then they think all fabrics are the same.
Right.
Well, they're not. This is a new category, a new way of growing, and it works great because we know what we're doing. We spent 15 years in the wilderness, perfecting that before we then finally started making this above ground, and we finally got the Smart Pot that actually does all of these things that you need, that you want done to make your growing work.
Yeah. A lot of people think that, fabric is fabric, but,
Right.
there's a big difference between, a cotton shirt and a cashmere sweater
Well,
or,
and there's
or a
difference,
nylon
there's
jacket.
a difference even between a good cotton shirt and a mediocre
Certainly.
sewn cotton shirt. And, of course, I didn't quite get into it, but in that process of 15 years, then we started to shift manufacturing up here to Oklahoma City. I started to think, we need to be making this ourselves.
More quality control.
More quality control. Not that the guys we were working with weren't trying to do a good job. They did as good a job as they could have. We had a very positive relationship with them. But when you're doing it yourself, you just figure out ways to make it a little bit better, and you're there doing it, and it just works.
And the refining
out
process
better.
goes quicker, too.
And the refining process goes quicker, and everything about it works better when you're doing it yourself with some quality control. And then, of course, if you're doing it yourself, then when customers call up, like the customer in Tampa, and they say, well, I want to do this above ground, but we're going to need it a little different. We're going to need a little bit different bottom. Can you do that? And we need this a little longer, and we need, you can accommodate. Or when Gardner Supply calls up and says, we want to do this potato bag, but, we don't want just your regular stuff. We need some special handles or whatever. Then if you're making it yourself, yes, you can do it. I remember I had dinner one time with one of the head guys at Gardner Supply, and he said, it's great working with you guys because, I can have an idea and call you all up, and I can have a prototype on my desk within a couple of weeks. And I said, well, can't you do that with everybody, every supplier you work with? And he looked at me like I was nuts. He said, are you kidding me? Because first of all, we make most everything comes from China, and it takes a long time to get a prototype. And then there's a lot of, it just takes a long, long time.
Certainly.
When you're making it here, it's one of the big advantages to Made in USA. And, Made in USA is kind of a jingo, Made in USA. But it actually does mean something in the sense that when you're dealing with someone here in the country, and you can send a prototype back, and they can look at it and say, well, can you do a little this or that, and we can get, you can work with people. And that becomes very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of customers that really appreciate, the service that High Caliper provides. Going along your lines, like some of our SKUs that, we sell were originally, product innovations that some of our customers, had. Like, hey, can you make this? And boom, we got a new product to sell.
Since the first Smart Pot, basically, where I thought, okay, we'll do it, but this guy's nuts. Sometimes, they're always nuts, okay, but sometimes those nutty ideas work out, and it works out where there's a million other people that would like that idea, or it just goes forward. So so that's where innovation comes from, and that's where we move forward. And it's amazing how many ideas come along that you initially think, well, that won't work, but
Yeah.
Let's-
If you guys have any ideas for any smart pot innovations, hit us up. We might send you the next big thing.
Well, certainly on prototypes,
Mhm.
we'll,
Yeah. We never know until we make it and,
Right,
and find out, is this viable and, scalable too. Now, I've seen the production floor downstairs where they're making smart pots. It takes a small army. Can you talk about, the production team?
Well, we now have quite a few employees, way over 100, and so we're now a somewhat sizable company, grown from Dad and I basically. So it's kind of amazing, and at times we have had a lot more. It is a challenge always to know how many bags do we need to make, how many people do we need to have, and our guys like a lot of overtime, so it's a challenge to keep all of that together and keep it rolling and functioning.
Yeah.
And
what's really cool, I think, about high caliper growing is a lot of the people that work down here are first generation Americans who might not be able to because of a language barrier work certain jobs, but they're able to sew and
Right.
box stuff.
Well, some of our first employees were refugees from Vietnam. And because they didn't have to have language skills, you could work for us and cut fabric or sew fabric. You don't have to have language skills. Our first employee really was had been a colonel in the South Vietnamese Army, and he was taken to a Vietnamese re-education camp for 14 or 15 years, and then finally got was allowed to be released and came to America, only because some other people who he knew by that time had come to Oklahoma City, and they actually started a chain of restaurants, which is still going big today. And so by that time, they had these restaurants, and they were able to get him out of the prison camp. So that was quite. So that was our first employee. Him and his wife, and then others from El Salvador. A lot of people from El Salvador. Central American countries, and then of course everywhere. Today we have employees from Burma. So it's one of the few places you can work without any language.
Yeah, that's
we do
awesome.
have a lot of long-term employees, and that's another thing that we're very proud of. We have employees who've been with us for 20, 21, 22 years now, who are work on our floor.
Yep.
In fact, our longest term employee now is our longest term, plural. Not just our people on the floor, other than myself.
Right.
I've been here since 1985. They've all been here since 2000, 1999, right around there.
Yeah.
So it's quite a. They joke about it. In fact, they kind of marvel at because when they first started, we were at a real small warehouse, and it was just 10 people, 6 or 7 people, and they're cutting this fabric and sewing it, and we're selling a little bit now. Of course, we've got 100, 150 or more. It's a big production line, and they're looking around thinking, "Whoa, what the?"
The company has come a long way since the humble beginnings.
And we're yelling at them saying, "We're going to have to work overtime again. We just got another work," that kind of stuff. So it's nice and very, very nice for them that we've been able to provide a great place of employment for them.
Yep.
And some of them are certainly, new to the country or are immigrants.
Yeah.
Some are not. depends a little bit.
Yeah, and those guys downstairs just do a heck of a job. The quality of
Well,
Smart Pots
when-
is A1.
When you're making a bag, or you're, let's say, running the cutting machine, or you're making the bag or sewing, if the fabric's not quite right, after you've made a couple thousand bags and you grab fabric that's not right, well, you know it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the stitch isn't right, you know it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have a process where you can, kind of report and check. So we have a lot of checks to make sure that the quality is there. And that really helps to have, when you have long-term employees, those checks work. And all of our competitors have, as far as I know, have zero checks. They never even see the product.
Right.
Most of our competitors, the bags are made in China by people who don't know what the bag is for. They're sent directly to the customer. The customer pulls it out and uses. If it was bad fabric or thread or stitched wrong or anything like that, well, who would know? The first person who's actually seen it is the grower. Is the guy who's going to use it, who just pulled it out of the box.
Yep.
So at our place, it's very different.
Yep.
We know about it.
Now, what would you say has been the largest challenge that you've faced in building up High Caliper, growing into the company that it is today?
Well, a great number of challenges. At first, was just to stay above water and to sell enough product to survive to the next year, because our product quality wasn't that good. So we didn't have that good of a product, or that we just weren't making it very well. But if the idea was sound, one thing that always kind of kept me going was thinking, okay, this idea is sound. This idea should work. Now, the product we have doesn't really work, but if we had a better product, it would work. And trying to build that better product, which took quite a few years, quite a long time. But more recently, meaning in the last 15, 20 years, it's growing, financially, to be able to grow, to add, to expand, to, we're going to make more bags. Well, I need a new building. It's those types of things, to be able to expand and then contract and expand and contract. The market has been very, very up and down, and to be able to manage that is quite a, financially, to be able to manage it. And we've got, our accountant, Philip, and it just, it's a challenge.
Planning for the next year is difficult in the gardening industry, because you don't know how well your customer is going to do the previous year, and are they going to be needing to buy more?
This last year or 2 years kind of the last year and 2 years have all blurred together with COVID. When COVID first hit, first of all, when COVID first hit, I was at a trade show in Barcelona and got stuck over there because, nobody wants to, it's COVID, we don't want you to come home. It's,
I remember warning against you going.
Yes. As a matter of fact, a number of people in the company told me not to go to Barcelona, that COVID was going to hit. And I told them, no, that's wrong. There were no cases of COVID. When I got on the plane, there were no cases of COVID in Barcelona. And by the time I got off the plane in Barcelona, there were like 1,000 cases, and it was a breakout. And anyway, so, but there, like with COVID, well, should we even be open? What should we do? What are we supposed to do? Are we essential? Is it what? There were all of these questions.
Right.
And, of course, then with COVID, more people turned to gardening suddenly. So suddenly our garden stores were, calling us for more Smart Pots. Our garden stores were suddenly sold out. And we, on the other hand, are thinking we're going to have to dismiss everybody because we don't want people to get sick. What do you do? It becomes quite a challenge. And our guys did a really good job, I must say, but it's stressful, and and challenging.
Yeah, I think we've had
as well.
a really good last 2 years, but just from what I know that, you and Jeff have had to deal with, there's been a lot of headaches to go with that growth.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's coming off of, the collapse before that, a year before, where the market just completely collapsed and crashed and burned. And, so the grow market is just way up and down.
Yeah.
And it gets very hard to hard to predict.
Yeah.
And we try to balance that by being in different markets. In other words, we're in the nursery market, we sell to tree growers. We're in the cannabis market, we're selling to cannabis growers. We're in the lawn and garden market, we sell to independent garden centers. But it's not an even mix, and those markets overlap, and if one of them collapses, well, how do you even know that it collapses? They don't tell you. The tree market collapsed around 2008 with the housing market.
Sure.
Housing crashed. Well, about 4 or 5 months later, suddenly landscaping crashes, which means the tree grower, all that crashes. Well, they don't make a big announcement, the tree market's going to crash. You better, so you don't know.
Right.
And the same with the cannabis market in 2017.
Yep.
Completely collapsed. Well, nobody told us.
Yeah.
So it gets difficult these things get very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, you can plan ahead the best that you can, but
right. Right. Yeah, but you're still just kind of you do the best you can. But we do try. We make a good product. I say you do the best you can, but if you make a good product, you make it consistently, you offer it at a fair price, you don't tell people what you're doing. You stay a little bit conservative in your financing. So that your credit cards aren't totally maxed out. Then you can.
Yeah, don't overextend yourself thinking that the next year is just going to be gangbusters, in case it's not.
Right. Yeah.
Makes sense. What are some challenges that you see on the horizon in the near or maybe long term? Either I guess for high caliber or maybe for the general growing and gardening industry.
Well, our end of the gardening industry it depends on what you mean by the gardening industry. Our end on the lawn and garden side is to educate people, and we particularly try to focus on growing vegetables because we find a niche in vegetables that we didn't find or couldn't find. It gets back to when I was talking about the potato bag with Gardener Supply. Well, why do you specifically say it's potato? Well, if you can help people find a real use for your product, that really helps you introduce the idea and the concept of fabric containers. Well, what we found over the years is that with if someone's growing roses or begonias or something like that, well, they probably want a decorative container because they're going to be in the front porch and it needs to look nice, and looking nice is very important to them. On the other hand, if they're growing 20,000 begonias or petunias, they're a commercial grower, well, they need a plastic pot because they can move it around. And that's what Home Depot wants to buy from them is a plastic pot. Mm-hmm. So where does a fabric pot, where does a smart pot fit in with something like that? Well, we have found that the best place for us or the easiest niche for us to fit in lawn and garden is for customers who are growing something they're going to eat, something they're going to ingest. The farm to table movement, if you're growing your own tomatoes, if you're growing your own cucumbers, if you're growing potatoes, if you're growing something that you're going to some way ingest, then the smart pot is it. So we tried to niche ourselves and tell people in lawn and garden, you have customers who want to grow something they're going to eat, they should use a smart pot.
Yeah.
So sending that message out has been very important to us, and that's kind of our niche in lawn and garden. In cannabis, as the cannabis market changes, then we try to stay up with it, and those cannabis growers who are using containers, not growing in the ground, they're growing in containers. Well, ours is the best container to use. distributes the water more evenly. It root prunes better. You can reuse it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a better container for cannabis.
Yeah.
But that market we dominate, and or at least we're the the heavyweight there.
Yep.
And then our standard tree market as well.
Yeah.
So keeping those, pushing forward on all of those.
Okay, what would you say is the biggest strength of high caliber growing?
Well, currently the Made in USA is it allows us to continually check quality control, have great quality control. It allows us to focus where the customer needs are. If we need 15-gallon bags, or we need 30-gallon bags, or the market suddenly shifts and they want 200-gallon bags, well, we're making it here so we can shift it, and that also means that we can deliver to the customer as quick as possible. Which is very, very nice to be able to deliver to people. Now, with COVID, we got backed up a little bit, but we were delivering quicker than any of our competitors were delivering. So we still, were working forward pretty as best we could. But had we not been Made in USA, oh my goodness, then you're waiting, 3 or 4 months, and then you're trying to port in Long Beach or Los Angeles, and you're like the 1,500th container ship out there. So
yeah, anybody who's in the manufacturing world importing is feeling the pain right now.
It's an issue.
It has been. Now, kind of getting into, you personally, do you have a favorite plant that you like to grow?
Yeah, but I'm more of an eater than a grower.
Me too.
Now we have a greenhouse here and we grow at home, and so yes, but I enjoy more eating, tomatoes or cucumbers or something that is fresh, basil, herbs. It's just amazing herbs that are fresh where you pick them off and put them in a pasta. It has a much greater moisture content. The flavor content is just amazing, just overpowering.
Yep.
So I like the eating more than the growing. Not now. Most of our customers are more into the growing, but I'm more of an eater.
Well, if you want to eat it, you got to grow it first.
Well,
so
that's,
I'm
a
right
chicken
there
and
with
egg
you.
deal. I don't know.
Now, I'm sure I've heard so many stories, of customers of ours over the years. Do you have a favorite story, or I guess maybe a favorite customer that you've met over the years? Something that might just be kind of off the wall.
Well, we've been blessed with so many great customers. Well, one good story. There's a whole bunch, but one that you would appreciate was I told you the innuendo of the Smart Pot. Mm-hmm. We're making the Smart Pot for years, 5 or 6 years before we knew there was such thing as an innuendo. But once we get ensconced in Northern California, Mendocino, Humboldt, the Emerald Triangle area, and all of that kind of stuff. I was up there one time in Mendocino County, and we were going out to a dinner with some customers, and this one guy, we're having beers. This one guy's, looking over at me. He goes, "Man, you're a genius, man." He's drinking his beer. You're a genius. Came up with that Smart Pot, that word Smart Pot. Hey, you're a genius, man. How'd you do it? You're a genius. I'm going, well, we're not. I don't know if I'm a genius. So there's this customer, tree grower in Tampa, Florida, and he's growing maple trees and oak trees, and he really kind of helped. He came up with the word. So he's listening to us, and he goes, finally he figures out, this you came up with this to grow maple trees and oak trees. He goes, "You mean the word Smart Pot? It doesn't have anything to do with what goes on around here?" And I said, "No, it's this French guy. It's the maple trees, the oak trees." And he goes, "Well," he slams his beer down. He goes, "Oh, the luck, So anyway, it was kind of
just ruined that guy's day.
I kind of ruined his day. If you want to think we're geniuses, go right ahead, buddy. But unfortunately, the story is a little more mundane. But
oh, nice.
But it did. ultimately it did kind of work out for everybody.
Yes, yes. Now,
So we're always happy to go to Mendocino County.
where now, high caliper growing has been around, for decades, and success hasn't come overnight. Do you have any words of advice or encouragement for entrepreneurs?
Not really, other than don't do it. It's taken us a long time. When I started, I had brown hair, and now I have gray hair. It's.
People see Kurt Reiger, the successful man, but they don't know about the years and years of struggling to refine the product and keep the customers and find new ones.
So
it's been a long trudge.
I would be a little bit slow to offer advice. We just kind of have plowed ahead and say. And the one thing that did keep me going or keep us going was the knowledge that I knew that we were dealing with some really interesting concepts of root pruning, root enhancement, improving the root structure on a plant. Well, that had to mean something. There had to be something beneficial that could come from that. I don't know what, but surely there would be something. Because it was fascinating that we were doing it, and there had to be some type of benefit that could be of use to somebody. Mm-hmm. But finding that has taken a very, very long time.
Yeah. So I guess, long story short, don't expect your success to come overnight. Unless you're winning the lottery or something.
Yeah, it's certainly not in the lawn and garden or or any of these, or the cannabis or the nursery industry. The cannabis industry moves quickly. Lawn and garden moves a lot slower, and the nursery industry moves at a glacial pace.
Yes.
The only thing that moves slower than the nursery industry is probably wine, only because the time periods are long. How long does it take you to grow grapes and make wine? Well, before you sell it, years and years and years and years. So you're very slow to want to change anything. Well, if you're growing oak trees, that's a 4 or 5 year process. And if you mess up in year 1, you're out for year 4.
Right.
So you're very slow to make any change because it's quite a year's process. You can't experiment so much with that.
Yeah.
So it becomes a very slow-moving industry.
Yeah. So entrepreneurs, if you're looking to get into the lawn and garden industry, do your homework, make sure you know what you're doing, and be in store for
Something
struggles.
Yeah.
But anything worth doing is worth struggling for and persevering. Yeah. So
and we've had I've greatly benefited by being around some great people, and I've been very blessed with that. With now my wife and other employees that have really helped us along the way.
Yep, certainly.
Yeah.
I think this has really been a great interview, and I've actually learned even more about the company than I had known before. So thank you so much, Kurt,
thanks for having me, Eric.
Having us here.
Appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing everybody out on the road, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.